I am Amy Lau Tsuen Yim, the author of a book named Memoirs of My 8 Years in Macau. In 1958, at the age of 3, I left Canton with my parents and arrived in Macau. In the 50s and 60s, Macau was a plain, quiet and peaceful small town with limited resources. Living was harsh and impoverished, but the community was close-knit and neighbors lived in harmony, helping and looking after each other. Between the age of 3 when I left Canton for Macau and the age of 11 when I left Macau for Hong Kong, I spent 8 happy childhood years in Macau. If life is a journey with many stops, I had spent more time in later stops than in Macau. Like a river, time never stopped. Yet, no matter where I am, the memories and vignettes of these 8 years of my life from over half a century ago follow me wherever I go, ever fresh and alive, never fading. They stay within my heart, floating along with my joys of living, appearing in my dream. So, one day, I decided to fix these memories on paper, enabling all those people around me 50 years ago to come back to life again. That Macau has evolved into prosperity today, from a small fishing village of poverty and hardship 50 years ago, is the result of 2 to 3 generations of silently hardworking folks. The small town charm that belongs to that era, material scarcity, a simple life, and rich human relationships can only be retrieved from memories, the beautiful memories of my childhood. As the saying goes, if they are not forgotten, then they are forever alive. If you and I grew up in the same period, and you have lived in Macau, this book may arouse your childhood memory. This is my intention. If you did not grow up in the same period of time, and you have not lived in Macau before, this book may enable you to have a glimpse of Macau in the 50s and 60s and arouse your interest in pursuing its culture and history. This is my wish. If the publication of this book allows me to meet the childhood friends, teachers, and classmates whom I have lost contact with for decades, this is my lifelong dream. Amy Lau.
My family moved to Macau when I was 3 years old. It was 1952. I don't remember much about the trip. What I do remember is the humid air on my skin and the smell of incense and spices. It was a lot for a little kid from northern China. Back then, Macau was run by Portugal. It had narrow streets and pastel-colored buildings. The streets were always busy with people selling things and kids playing. It was very different from the quiet life I knew. My parents hoped for a better life in Macau. My dad became a mechanic. My mum sewed clothes for people. Life wasn't easy, but it was our life. And in this new place, we started to build our home. Life in Macau in the 1950s and 60s was simple. We didn't have many things, but our neighbors were like family. Everyone knew each other on our street. We ate together, told stories, and laughed a lot. Kids played outside until the sun went down. No one locked their doors. We felt safe. It's hard to find that feeling today. Life had its tough times. Things were hard to get, but we learned to make do. We fixed our clothes, shared what we had, and helped each other. We didn't have much money, but we were happy. I especially remember the Mid-Autumn Festival every year. Everyone in the neighborhood would meet in the square. We lit lanterns and looked at the full moon. The air smelled like sweet mooncakes. Kids laughed and played. I also remember the street vendors. They were always there. The man selling hot noodles, the woman with her cart of fruits and vegetables. Their voices were the sounds of my childhood. These simple moments were actually very special. They made up my childhood. They were simple, beautiful, and I'll never forget them. Today, Macau is a big, busy city. Tourists come from all over the world. There are tall casinos and fancy hotels everywhere. Life is fast. It's very different from the quiet place I grew up in. I'm amazed by how much Macau has changed. But I also miss the way it used to be, the sound of kids playing outside, the smell of incense from the shops, the feeling of being close to people. These memories aren't just mine. They belong to everyone who grew up in Macau back then. We need to keep these memories alive. We need to tell young people about them so they can understand our special culture. When we remember our past, we make our future better.
Thank you.